Tonight, you'll set an alarm. And tomorrow, a small machine will pull you out of sleep before your body is finished with it. So you can go do work you didn't choose, to pay for a life that never quite feels finished. For 300,000 years, not one human being woke up that way. There are still a few people left who don't. In the dry hills of Tanzania, the Hadza live with no farms, no money, and no bosses. One of the last groups on Earth still surviving by hunting and gathering, the way every single one of your ancestors once did. And when researchers add up everything a Hadza actually does in a day, the hunting, the digging, the cooking, the tool making, the work comes to only a few hours. When anthropologist Richard Lee tracked the Kung of the Kalahari down to the minute, the real number came out around 15 hours a week. Most of us pass that by Tuesday afternoon. No schedule, no alarm, no word for late. So what did people do with all that time? Let's walk through one full day. You don't wake up to a sound. You wake up to the light changing, and the temperature, and the camp stirring around you. You slept on a hide over flattened grass, near a fire someone kept alive through the night. There are maybe 2 or 3 dozen people around you, and you have known every single one of them your entire life. Your grandmother is a few feet away. Your cousins are in the next shelter. Everything you own, a bow, a digging stick, a couple of hides, some beads, would fit in one bag. Nobody gets up on time because there's no time to be on. People wake as they wake. And the first thing that happens before any food or work is talk. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner recorded how hunter-gatherers actually spend their conversation and found they pour hours a day into it. Not idle chatter. This talk is the machinery that holds the whole camp together. Who's been generous and who's been stingy? Who's quarreling? Who's sick and hiding it? Who told a story so good it's still being repeated? In a group with no police, no court, and no boss, talking about each other is the entire justice system. If a man starts hoarding, people don't file a complaint. They tease him, relentlessly, publicly, until he stops. If someone becomes truly unbearable, the ultimate punishment is that no camp wants them around anymore. And for a person who survives only through the group, that's the harshest sentence there is. It almost never has to be used. The teasing gets there first. Now the men gather their bows and head out. Hunting looks like the main event. It mostly isn't. Frank Marlowe spent decades with the Hadza and found that on any given day, most hunters come home with nothing. A man might walk 20 miles, track a wounded animal for hours, lose it in the brush, and return with a couple of small birds and aching feet. A real kill, an antelope, sometimes even a giraffe brought down with poison-tipped arrows, happens maybe once every few days, if that. So if the hunters usually come back empty-handed, who's feeding everyone? The women, every single day. Among the Hadza, women bring in more than half the camp's calories. And unlike the hunt, their food doesn't depend on luck. They head out in groups, dig up tubers, strip berry bushes, climb for honey, and come back with something reliable every time. And the best gatherers in camp usually aren't the young mothers. They're the grandmothers. Women in their 50s and 60s routinely outforage women in their 20s, and many are still walking miles a day into their 70s. This is where one of the strangest facts about our species comes from. Humans are almost the only animal whose females live for decades after they stop having children. Why? The leading idea, called the grandmother hypothesis, is exactly what those women are demonstrating on the walk home. Grandmothers who fed their grandchildren helped more of them survive, so evolution kept the grandmothers around. Your long-lived grandmother is, in a sense, a survival technology. The children tag along and learn by copying. A 3-year-old pokes at the dirt with a tiny digging stick beside her mother. By 6, she can find real food. By 8 or 10, a Hadza kid can be sent off with a small bow and come back with a bird. And nobody thinks that's remarkable. David Lancy, who studied childhood across dozens of traditional societies, found kids spent most of the day in mixed-age packs, older children teaching younger ones, adults barely interfering. No classroom, no lessons, just watching the grown-ups do the actual work of living, an arm's length away. That's the school humans were built to attend. When food comes back to camp, it doesn't belong to whoever brought it. It gets shared, and sharing isn't a kindness here. It's a law. When a Hadza hunter finally does make a big kill, he doesn't own the meat. He gives it away and often ends up with one of the worst cuts himself. Everyone eats. Anthropologists think this endless sharing helped build the human mind. To live this way, you have to keep a running ledger in your head. Who gave, who took, who pulled their weight, who quietly skipped their turn, across dozens of people, over years. No other animal has ever needed to do that much social bookkeeping. Generosity was the savings account, and the brain was the bank. There's a custom that shows just how seriously they take it. When a hunter drags home a huge kill, the camp doesn't cheer. They mock it. They tell him the animal is skinny, the meat is worthless. He wasted everyone's day. The bigger the kill, the harder the insults. It sounds cruel until you understand what it's for. It keeps the best hunter in camp from believing he's better than anyone else. In a group that survives only by staying equal, nobody is allowed to rise above the rest. And a few well-aimed jokes are how they enforce it. We built courtrooms and prisons to keep people in line. They did it with teasing over dinner. The middle of the day is hot, so nobody fights it. The camp goes quiet. People nap, mend arrows, weave baskets, sit in the shade, and pick through each other's hair. Which sounds unpleasant, but is really just an excuse to spend an hour touching the people you love. And when disagreements do flare up, because these are humans with jealousy and grudges and the occasional stolen tool, they often end in a way we can't manage anymore. In a world where everything you own packs up in 15 minutes, the person who's angry just leaves. They go stay with relatives a few miles off for a few weeks. By the time they come back, the heat has drained out of it. The Kung called it voting with your feet. Try doing that with a lease and a job. The camp picks back up. People wander between neighboring camps to visit cousins, trade news, maybe arrange a marriage. The same handful of camps stay woven together this way, year after year. By the time you're grown, you personally know well over 100 people. Everyone, by name, by family, by history. The hunters trickle back, some days with a kill, most days without. And on the empty-handed days, which are most of them, it's the women's steady haul that quietly saves the evening again. Cooking starts. Roots buried in the coals, meat simmered with hot stones, fruit split open, tough seeds chewed soft for the smallest children. Then everyone eats. The whole camp. Together. The way humans have eaten together nearly every night for 300,000 years. The fire is where the day really ends. Wiesner noticed that daytime talk and nighttime talk are different things. In the day, people discuss the practical, who did what, who owes whom. But after dark, by firelight, the talk turns to stories, myths, ancestors, faraway places, the people who came before. The firelight, she argued, is where a band's imagination lives, where children learn who they are and where they came from. And then you sleep, close to the same people you've slept near your whole life, and tomorrow you do it again. This isn't paradise. They get sick, they bury children, they lose people they love, they fight and grieve like anyone. Life was often short and sometimes brutally hard. But back in the 1970s, an anthropologist named Marshall Salins looked at all this evidence and called these people the original affluent society. He didn't mean they were rich. They owned almost nothing. He meant they were rich in the one thing we're always short of: time. We made real trades to leave that life behind, and some of them were worth it. We got vaccines and antibiotics and clean water. We got longer lives. We stopped watching 4 out of every 10 children die before the age of 5. Nobody sane wants to give that back. But we made other trades we don't like to mention. We invented farming, and then we invented working land that somebody else owns. We invented the boss. We invented the bill. We traded a few hours of work and a lifetime of company for long hours and quiet loneliness. For lying awake at night measuring ourselves against strangers we'll never meet. You are still carrying that Hadza woman's body, the same nervous system. The same need for sun, for sleep, for touch, for a fire and a few dozen faces you actually know. We are still hunter-gatherers. We just forgot we were.